Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are all over the globe. We're so happy to be with you today. My name is Marie McCormick, and I'm a principal in Insyte Partners. The intent of our Google Hangout today is to share with you a case study of a client that we worked with, now client, now friend, that we worked with, Lower Merion School District. Lower Merion School District is a high-performing suburban district outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we had the pleasure of working with the team there for about a 6 to 9 month strategic planning process. So I want to introduce to you our colleagues. First, my partner in crime and partner at Insyte Partners, Liz Alperin. Liz.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Good morning, good whatever time of the day it is. This is Liz. I'm Marie's partner, business partner in Insyte Partners, Liz Alperin. So nice to be with you this morning.
And I'd also like to welcome into the call two of our colleagues and friends from Lower Merion. If you'd introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. I'm Jerry Fitzpatrick-Doria, and here at Lower Merion, I'm the Director of Elementary Education.
And my name is Gwen Nardowitz, and I am a teacher on special assignment coordinating professional learning and gifted education in the district.
So welcome and thank you to both of you for joining us today. We thought it would be really great to not just hear from Liz and I as the consultants, but much more importantly to also hear the perspective of those involved in the process. So we really appreciate Gwen and Jerry joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. So to begin, I just want to spend a minute talking about Insyte Partners and our work with Theory U. So Liz and I have been doing this work on profound change for about 20 plus years. And about 8 years ago, we've been doing large groups work, including strategic planning, using whole system dialogue methodologies. And we were getting good results, but we said to each other, we really believe that our results can be deeper, more sustainable, more innovative. And so we took a little sabbatical. And one of the things that we did during the sabbatical was take a meditation class. And in taking it, it was really a deep experience for us in getting to know ourselves better and seeing our own seeing. And we said to each other, what would it be? Imagine what it would be if we could do for organizations what meditation can do for us. And it was at that point that we heard about Theory U. And we signed up as soon as we could to go to what was, I think, the first public Theory U training with Otto and others. And we came home from that class and said, wow, this is going to become, we knew it was big, we knew it would change the way we did our work. And so since that time, and starting basically 2 weeks after we came back from the course, we started using Theory U as our framework for change. And our work has, ever since then, Theory U has been the frame for all of our work. We do work in strategic planning, in collective impact, in leadership development. And we like to say that the 3 pillars of our work are engagement, always including people from the system, getting all sorts of voices from the system in. The second is innovation. Exploration. Theory U is so great and important at looking at innovation. And finally, mobilizing change. So Liz and I feel like, and I know our friends here do as well, that a strategic plan that sits on the shelf might not as well have been done, that it's really about a roadmap for change. So that's the background here. With that, I'd like to just give a little bit on how we'll be proceeding today. So I'm serving a little bit as moderator, and what we'd like to do is first hear from Gwen and Jerry about the background, the context, like what led to the strategic plan, what were the challenges, and then Liz will share with us a little bit of the details of the process, what we went through, what the Lower Merion embarked on as a group, and then we'll come back to the two from Lower Merion to share about the outcomes, the impact on themselves as individuals, on the organization as a whole, how they're communicating to others, what implementation looks like, and how the future will unroll. And finally, Liz will close with just some closing thoughts on the case. So with that, and also I'd like to say, if you're online, there is a Q&A box, and you can click on that and share any questions that you would have with us, and we'll try to get to them by the end of the call. So again, thank you for joining, and I'd like to turn it over to Gwen and Jerry to talk about the background faced.
So how we arrived at our starting point was absolutely under the leadership of Dr. Wagner-Marseille. He is our acting superintendent and had a calling to do things differently. We are really very well positioned in many of our strengths to mobilize change. We have a great deal of community support for our public education system. We have exceptional high-quality teachers who also believe they feel a calling. We have facilities that are top-notch. We do have a growing population, a diverse student population, but all of these factors kind of combined for wanting to do different. So we came together again under the leadership of Dr. Marseille to tap in to our collective wisdom to talk about what it is that we want for the long-term future of our district, recognizing that our enrollment growth is certainly a challenge, that we do, despite good intentions, we do have an achievement gap that is affects access to our core curriculum. That we have, limited, all resources are limited, need to be fiscally responsible. So being mindful of our strengths as well as some of the challenges that we face, also being a public institution, federal and state laws impact us. So we have, and we have a tradition, I'll say, a long tradition of excellence, which is something that we're very, very proud of, but can in some ways be a barrier to change. So we needed to start recognizing and being very proud of our strengths, but thinking strategically about how to overcome our challenges. And that's how we kind of centered around this idea of what would it take to do different.
And if I could add, thank you, Gwen.
Of course.
Something that was at the forefront, I think, that we didn't say but came through was the shifting landscape. So the shifting landscape of education and of that layer of technology with education that just continued to surface. So that was just something powerful. And what two words popped out when Gwen was speaking. So I'll just speak that came to me, and it was truth and voice. So through this work one doesn't come before the other one, but it really it's focusing on the truth of what we have and what we need to do, and then the voice of everyone, and that's really a key piece in this work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both. Really, so building on the strength but not being afraid to change is something that, as you're talking, that comes to mind for me. So Liz, if you want to add in on anything around the background, context, etc., and then if you could lead us through the process that Lower Merion undertook.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to add one more piece to the backdrop, and that is that Lower Merion has always been a leader among public education school districts. And, it's no secret that public education in the United States is undergoing a crisis, and that the solutions, there's no solutions that seem to be large and enough to make a real difference in some of the profound issues that folks are facing in public education. And so Lower Merion felt a stewardship responsibility to almost be a beacon. The words I remember people saying were, "If not us, then who?" Like who can make the difference? If we can't get public education right, then who can? We have resources, we have talent, and we do have the guts. And that was when Marie and I came on board, Dr. Marseille, one of the messages he kept driving home to us was that this needs to be a bold plan. This cannot be an incremental plan. It needs to be bold. And in fact, we came up with 3 criteria that carried us throughout the strategic planning process. The plan needed to be, number 1, bold. Number 2, simple. It couldn't be it couldn't be a big, fat binder that you had to navigate your way through. It had to be really simple. So no matter who you were, you could wrap your head around it and understand your place in it. And the 3rd criteria is it had to be ours. Those were the words, ours. It had to really resonate with the truth, to Jerry's point, of what Lower Merion was about and what it was up against. So the other thing to say is that before Marie and I were involved, the leadership was really super committed to this issue of voice, and in fact had convened about 20 different focus groups around the region and around the district. Parents and community members, students, faculty. In fact, Jerry, in her role in elementary education, had gotten young children, elementary school children, to tell the stories of their vision for the future of Lower Merion. You saw that in the little blurb about promoting this Google Hangout. You saw the pictures that very young children were creating. And in addition to, I would want to say, 25 different focus groups, there were surveys that had been sent out to students, to parents. Like over 1,000 people had completed very complex surveys. So when Marie and I came, and then what happened was everyone said, "Whoa, all this data, now how are we going to integrate it? How are we going to turn it into something useful? How are we going to get the community involved?" So the first thing that Marie and I did, and this is something we always do in our work, is we convened a leadership team. Because one of the things Marie told you, we've been doing this high engagement work for quite a while, but we're smart enough to know that nothing that we know how to do is a substitute for strong and wise leadership. So the first thing we did was convene a leadership team of about 12 to 15 people. And these were mostly, in this case, these were mostly internal folks. It was Gwen and Jerry and about 10 other of their colleagues who had leadership responsibility, either building responsibility or district responsibility. And the other thing to say is our timeline was tight. This was March of last year that we came in, and the school was going to close in June, and so we needed to have the bones of a strategic plan by May, so that the leadership team could work over the summer and get the writing in place so it could be up for public display in the fall, because the rules are that any draft strategic plan has to have a period of 28 days for public comment. So we had really no time. But what we did was we convened, so Marie and I interviewed, we did what folks know as dialogue interviews with each of the leadership team, and to try to understand what's their heart's desire here. What is it that really matters? We didn't interview everyone. We interviewed a sample of folks, again, because of time. And whoa, we figured out quick that we had bright people who were really passionate, who were afraid they wouldn't be able to do much because of this point that Gwen made of being a high-performing district, and that families would be scared to death of change because they still wanted their kids to get into Ivy League schools and all of this. And that we had a lot of energy. So at our first meeting, we used this leadership team throughout. We convened this leadership team throughout the process on a regular basis. And one of the first things that came up, we did a mind map, if anybody knows that. It's a visual representation of what success would look like for this strategic planning work. And one of the first things that came out of that mind mapping work was folks said, nothing would matter more than it could get test scores and get to the social, emotional health of our children and for a global world, but everyone said there is no way we're going to be able to do it. That would be success, but forget it. Don't even set your sights there. So with that as backdrop, I'll tell you that we then convened a steering committee. Actually, the district folks identified about 60 people to be in a steering committee. The steering committee included students, teachers, administrators, community members, family members, experts in the field. We met 4 times. 3 of those times were in 1 month. We met for a day at a time. So we had pretty much almost a full day, almost between 6 to 8 hours, 3 times in the month of March, with between a couple of days and a couple of weeks in between. The very first session we began with, we talked about Theory U. And before this, I want to say we did open forums. So we had a series of 4 open forums that anyone could come to, students, parents, whatever. We used open space, that meeting design, for folks who know that. It's easy to find if you look it up. And basically the people who showed up set the agenda. So they said, they set the agenda. So the question was, the topic is the strategic vision for Lower Merion. We want to learn from the future. We want to be drawn by the future as opposed to the past. What are the most important conversations we ought to have? So the community set the agenda. And I see a note here, students from how old? So the students who are involved in those listening forums were probably middle school is the youngest who came to the listening forums. And I would say mostly it was high school students and recent alums who were involved throughout the work, although the focus groups were children down to elementary. And please, Gwen or Jerry, if you want to pipe in, please do. Yeah. So we had these 4 listening forums where the community set the agenda of what they wanted to hear. And all of them were, if we did nothing else, we made a huge dent with those community forums. Folks were saying, wow, we're getting to set the agenda. We parents are sitting here talking with students and with administrators and teachers. And these were on the weekends, and teachers were showing up. And already we set a tone of this is a different kind of experience because of the folks who showed up and the format of really wanting to hear the community. So we took the data from our focus groups, the data, tons of data from the surveys. I'm telling you, binders of data, and the key points from these community forums, and we brought them to our first of 4 steering committee meetings. At that steering committee meeting, we started out with quiet. We started out with mindfulness and told people that about the sacred nature of this work, that we were planning not only on behalf of the children of Lower Merion, but really on children of the United States, because our intent was to be a beacon for school districts throughout the country. And we used a process called World Cafe to generate dialogue on important topics. So one of the questions we asked was, what are the driving forces? Like, if we think about with the future in mind, what are the driving forces that are essential for us to be aware of? And then we asked, what are the most essential conversations that we must have to fulfill our sacred responsibility to plan on behalf of the children of Lower Merion? And through that work, it was about, we had about a day of looking at the data from all these different sources and asking the question over and over, what are the most important conversations? We generated a list of essential conversations, those questions that if we didn't answer them, we weren't fulfilling our responsibility to do really strategic work. So we went away, and the group said from the very beginning, whoa, this is a different kind of conversation. People were accustomed to public forums where people would talk over one another and there was lots of battling of wills. But by introducing Theory U's the listening frame and the dialogue frame, and by being very clear that this was really sacred work, we had established a level of, we had created from the very first meeting a feeling of a social field and a feeling something of grace. It was really, this is the privilege of doing this kind of work. We went away, and the next thing we did, Marie and I often use learning journeys as a way to get people to pop on their most essential questions, to see beyond themselves. And again, we had this awesome leadership team who was committed to making learning journeys happen. So in a period of really 2 weeks, we set up about, I want to say, 12 learning journeys. Look at them laughing because it was a lot of work.
Making it happen around here.
Oh my God, it was nonstop work. But we wanted to visit places that would give us insight into these essential questions. So as an example, one of the questions was, how do you take a big, mighty school district like Lower Merion and get it to turn on a dime and make change when you're already powerful? And so we visited Comcast. Comcast, you know, I don't know, whatever their communications company is based in Philadelphia, has towers in Philadelphia. And we said, let's go visit Comcast. If anybody knows how to turn on a dime when you're big and powerful, it's Comcast. Another question is, how can we understand like the changing nature of technology and manufacturing and how the world is changing so quickly? So we visited a place called Next Fab, which calls itself a manufacturing gym. And we saw this amazing privately owned company that has 3D printers. It has these amazing technological sewing machines. It has little hubs for people to come in and spawn new business. And it's totally membership based. So companies call this place to produce new products. Anyway, we set that up. I'm going to say so at our next meeting, which was a full-day meeting, these 12 learning journeys, we broke into groups of between 5 and 10 people, and everybody went to a different learning journey to immerse themselves in one of these environments that might provide insight to our most critical questions. And then in the afternoon, we came back and told each other what we learned. That was the second meeting. So I want to pause and just ask Gwen and Jerry, are there any other learning journeys you'd want to call out that you thought made a big difference?
Oh, for sure. We went to the University of Pennsylvania, their Netters Center, and the connection to the community. And so we had really great dialogue and insight in alternate ways of reaching out to connect with community. So they shared some of their strategies, and it so happened that the gentleman that was leading our session is actually a Lower Merion parent. And that came out of it. Yeah, out of that, we didn't. That wasn't the intent. That's not how we connected. So it was perfect in that way. But really, you know, thinking past some of the traditional ways that you connect with community and just having those conversations. And the center was deeply connected with inner city, so that they gave us a different perspective as well. So that was a powerful experience.
The learning journey that I participated in was to a friend's school, a local friend's school, and some of the really some of the takeaway powerful things that we observed there was a meeting. So it was an entire community meeting that, you know, didn't have necessarily any formal structure, but that students and staff shared a space, shared quiet together, and just spoke from their heart about whatever was driving them that day. And it was really impressionable to see. I think we tend to think that structure around a conversation is how you can ensure that you achieve your outcomes, and or at least I'll speak for myself. That's how I looked at things, and seeing that there's more than one way to achieve shared outcomes, and that structure doesn't have to be imposed, that it can come from the community members, was a really cool thing. You know, there were teachers calling, or students calling their teachers by their first name. So that was also really, really cool. I mean, that's not necessarily a convention that we use in our schools, but what that did or what it seemed to do in terms of building community and making sure that students felt equally valued to their teachers was also pretty powerful to observe.
Yeah, thank you.
And another journey that I did not go, the trip I did not take, but came out through the conversation, was the connections to preschool experiences, because we really, hadn't put our toe in the water for that, and so the conversation about, engaging students as early as possible and being very intentional about that was powerful.
So I just want to add my experience. We went to a place called Indie Hall, and Indie Hall is a shared workspace with young, creative people who come there to work together. And what we were exploring was, like, what environments that the graduates of Lower Merion may enter into. The world of work, of the future is going to be different, is already different than the work of the past. And also the idea of collaborative workspaces and how they might be employed at Lower Merion. But so it was a great experience, but the point I really wanted to make was the bonding. So not only did we learn so much from the learning journeys, but also some of the other benefits were that the bonding that occurred between journeyers was incredible, number one. And number two, the bonding and relationships that were built, new relationships that were built with organizations throughout the city, many of which say, let's have partnerships on an ongoing basis, is something that just is an unexpected consequence that was just, awesome.
So you can see we were a little bit on fire after all these learning journeys. And that was the nature of it. It was a lot of energy. So we went away, came back probably a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, and moved spaces so that we could get in a space. We had trouble hearing each other in this first space, and there was time now to make some decisions. We were at the end of the month, and we had to figure out how to anchor this plan. So we used the main thing we did was use a methodology called 3D sculpting that comes out of Theory U. And this is when you hear Otto talk about turning back the beam of observation on your own system. That's pretty much what we did. So we had this group of 60 people, and we broke them into smaller groups of about 10, each of them having a table with a lot of objects. Marie and I brought a lot of sculpting objects. So we had with us pipe cleaners and clay dough and symbolic objects and action figures and all sorts of stuff. And we asked the groups, each of the groups, to construct the current system of Lower Merion Schools as it is right now, in all of its, beauty and all of its pain. And so what folks do is they together build a physical sculpture that represents the current social ecosystem, including the community, including teachers, including school culture, including everything, the current system. They look at that sculpture from 4 different vantage points as a group. So from the vantage point of what do I love in this and what is really frustrating, that's the first vantage point, the vantage point of emotion. The second vantage point is the vantage point of the warrior of truth. What are the hard truths in this system that we must say to each other, we must speak to each other now that we've done all this exploration together? The third vantage point is what are the systemic barriers? So what's kind of in the way, what's holding the old system in place that might be reframed? And then the fourth perspective is what's ending and what's dying in the system. And then after that conversation, in small groups, the groups then recreate the physical representation to represent the future that wants to be born for Lower Merion. So they take pieces away, add pieces, move things around, but construct the social environment as they feel in all of their open mind, open heart, open will wants to happen for this community and again for the country. And then we have so then all of the groups looked at each other's structures, and we built a list using large Post-its of what are the essential elements. So each group, what are the essential elements and what are the leverage points that got us from Sculpture 1 to Sculpture 2, down to just a few, 5 or so essential elements. We looked at them across all of them, and some themes began to emerge of where everyone is seeing the same future for Lower Merion. And then based on that process, Marie and I use a methodology called a reality dialogue. So we took each one of these anchor areas for the strategic plan and had a conversation around it. So we have 60 people in the room, and we go one by one. It usually takes us about a half an hour for the first reality dialogue, and then it tends to go a little bit faster. But the idea here is that we get the whole group in a dialogue around what is at the heart of what's wanted here. And we say to people, if you have any reservations at all, it's not fair. It's against the rules to go home and talk to your person at home about those reservations. They have to be raised here. So if there's any concerns, objections, lack of understanding, we want to bring them to this conversation so that we can look for the opportunities to integrate below what the objections are and hear each other, really hear. So we could end up with a set of what we call bold statements of strategic intent that everyone stands behind. And we go so far as, we don't wordsmith at this point. This is about, the general ideas. We go so far as ask everyone to hold thumbs at the end of each one of these dialogues. So thumbs up means, yep, I'm with you, or I don't care enough about this one, I'm going with the wisdom of the group, I lost my attention, because there's always a couple people who do that. Thumbs down means, sorry, I can't stand with you. I love you, but I can't stand with you on this one. And thumbs across means, even though someone will probably want to kill me, I need to talk more. So we went through that process for this whole group and ended up with 5 statements of bold statements of strategic intent. That's what they were called at first. That carried us through the summer. I'm going to go a little faster because I want to get through this work. But they were, so the topics of those, number 1 was redefining success. We will transcend school standards. So everybody in the United States knows we have standardized tests. We will transcend school standards and redefine success around social emotional health of our children, around global awareness, around creativity, and around what the skills that are really needed for this world. That was number 1. The second one was around transforming a transformative curriculum that's project-based and rooted in what kids are really fascinated by. I'm going to go faster because I know the others will talk about this later. The third was a real commitment to professional learning. We had teachers who are smart and jazzed but felt smothered. So creating mechanisms for professional learning that Gwen, by the way, is leading. Number 4 was around student-driven schools. So to really attend to this point of the individual child that Gwen was talking about, to really attend to what children want, need, are fascinated by, where their blocks are to help them move through their own blocks, and the futures that they want for their lives, to really attend to that. And then the 5th one was redefine the spirit of community. Really, we have an awesome community, engage them in whole different ways. So we had those, the group left proud and happy. Over the summer, a writing team, who are people who really are good writers, had really accountability for the plan, met in several different configurations to convert these bold statements, which were written in paragraphs that everyone agreed to, but to convert them to strategy, to put some more narrative behind them. So if you weren't part of this process, you would understand what they meant, and to make the translation to metrics and things that would reflect accountability. In the fall, we brought our group back again after the summer because of transparency and said, all right, here's our draft plan. Does it feel accurate to what we discovered together? There were places we had to talk more. It's another whole day meeting to really anchor this thing. Before, it was a written plan that went to the public for review, the school board for approval, and is now being implemented by Gwen and Jerry and their colleagues. And I'll say that there was not an ounce, not one squeak of objection to this plan. It met the criteria of bold, simple, and ours, and literally thousands of people had had a voice in it and had seen the process going along and stood behind it, stand behind it, at least, so it has agreement from the community. So I'm going to stop there, and I just was a question about how the work was funded, and I'll say the district funded it. They found the funds to do the work.
And I would be remiss to not really call attention to the support from our school board. This certainly would not have been possible without their leadership and their vision and their desire to want to partner with the larger school community to do right by our district and to do right by public education. So the school board, their support is tremendous.
And just to add to that with Gwen, Liz and I, the whole group couldn't meet together, but Liz and I met with sub-teams of the board throughout the process to make sure that the board really was involved, had a voice, and also there were representatives from the board on the vision team. So it was really important that the board be part of this process, throughout.
Absolutely. And Marcy Hockfield just joined us.
Good morning.
Hi, Marcy. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us, let's see you, and tell us who you are and your role
Sure.
at Lower Merion Strategic Planning.
Sure, Marcy Hockfield, and I am the Interim Director of Secondary Education.
Welcome, Marcy. So we just, we talked a little bit about the context and the background and the challenges of the work, and Liz just walked us through the process. And so now we're at the point where we really want to hear from the three of you in terms of your experience with the process, the impact on you as an organization, on you as individuals, and ultimately, what happened with the bold statements and what happened with the plan and where you are, from that point forward.
Sure. If I could jump in, because one thing we didn't highlight that was so powerful, connected with the learning journeys, was the immersion experience. So that was, parallel, and it was really powerful. And so just briefly to describe that, should I, or do you want to?
Yes, no, you do it.
Okay. While we were having these learning journeys, we also set up immersion experiences, and I'm actually physical. This is how I help to describe it to people. So learning journeys, immersion experiences. So we, because we would get confused. I'd go journeys, immersion experiences. So, spending some time, getting the steering committee members to spend time immersed in our own culture. And what was so powerful was, of the 69 members of the steering committee, we had teachers at elementary, middle, and high school. And many of them had never been in an alternate grade level school. So a teacher who has been teaching high school for 17 years never has been in one of our elementary schools, or an elementary school teacher had never been to a middle school. So we took these experiences, and actually the superintendent, Dr. Marseille, and Jerry Doria led the big enchilada trip. So we had a full day experience with a team, and we did an elementary, middle, and high school. So we spent the day, and we had lunch at the elementary lunch table, and we're in science labs and PLC meetings, and that was so powerful. I mean, people still really talk about that. The teachers actually saw, elementary teachers saw students that they taught in the middle and high school. They connected to the learning, and they realized that we had such a small lens of, and we did a good job, we do, but connecting 5th grade to 6th grade transition, or 8th grade to 9th grade transition, but not looking at that full K-12 experience. And even the parents, depending on how old your child is, if you're a kindergarten parent, you come to the table with the lens of a kindergarten parent, as opposed to a 12th grade parent, or a parent who's had the child go through the whole process, or someone new to the district at 4th grade. So there's so many different ways to look at the elephant. And so that was so important, because this is a group of people who were making decisions about moving forward, and so they really needed to see the full picture. What came from that is the need, and teachers realizing that we need to continue that process for many reasons, not just the strategic plan, but really for decision-making purposes. Before we say we're in, we agree, or we disagree, we really have to get that full picture. I just wanted to add that because that was really a powerful piece of the work.
Thank you, Jerry. And just so everybody understands where that fit in, on the left side of the U, when we're going down, when we're sensing, when we're just observing, when Liz and I so it's great to see this because you can see that not only was a lot accomplished, but we really had a lot of fun and made friends. So that's all great too. But Liz and I, when we do these journeys, categorize them into two things. One are the sensing immersion experiences, which are these deep dives into the system itself. The other are learning journeys where questions are named and we go out into other organizations, whether in the sector or out of the sector, to explore those questions. So that's all left side of the U. I just want to place that.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jerry. And so now we'd love to hear from the three of you about the impact that all of this has had on you as individuals and on the organization. And I also just want to note that we'll leave like 5 minutes at the end because we do have some questions coming up that we want to make sure we address.
Absolutely.
Take it away.
Sure. So I think one thing that really left an impression on me was how, or is really the power of the U and how we were able to get buy-in by engaging in the process. The process was not one that came natural to a lot of our steering committee members. The idea of really being present and of engaging in some meditation, to be really deliberate in our listening, to be really deliberate in our observations. Not that we don't think of those behaviors as important, but really being intentional about what we're listening for and what we're looking at in terms of bright spots and some of our practices on the fringe or on the edges that are really promising. So the U kind of sold itself, and you know, at first it was you know, I was a little reluctant because I was thinking, like, you know, we got a lot of type A people. Like, are we going to be able to engage in this process in the way that it was intended and not have people, like, checking out or laughing at it? So I think certainly with the facilitation of Liz and Marie and Dr. Marseille's energy, and you know, helped us to tap into our collective energy and to get down into our collective will and what it is that we want through that reflection, really thoughtful reflection. So I'm proud of our journey. I'm surprised by our journey. I'm humbled by our journey. But I think that's some of the lasting impact that it had from my lens.
Sure. So thank you, Gwen.
Yeah. Yep. And we want to make sure we hear from Marcy too.
Oh, she's going to be on it too.
Sure.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Please.
Oh, sure. So a couple of things that came to me for individually with the individual reflection. One of the biggest things is to question. So, you know, this work has caused me to question everything. You know, every day, and really, you know, going deeper into, you know, why do we do that? What do we feel about that? What will that look like in the future? So that constant state of inquiry has really surfaced through that. And another thing, not to, you know, I use the word groovy, not to be too groovy, but that feelings are important because, you know, in connecting in this way, and in, you know, in the work of being present and listening, it's so important to connect with other people. And sometimes, even though we're in the people business, we're so busy that we sometimes think that that's fluff, and it's so the work. And so bringing us back to that, which we know is true, I think we all know it in our heart, and just kind of bringing that back. The other piece that came up for me is it's okay not to know all the answers. And this kind of connects to the difference in how districts plan or how we've planned in the future. But it's okay to be at a place to say, I don't know. We need to find that out. But we live in a world where power comes with knowing the answer, being on top, being in charge, so kind of finding that place. And then releasing some fear, which is big, of what are we afraid of and when we want to make certain decisions. And then the piece that comes back to me is like authenticity and organic. Like so much of this came through that. And then the different from a different district plan is really crystal clear. And I've been in this work for 30 years. And so I've been through many strategic plans in many districts and schools. And, you know, up until this point, districts and the plans that I've been involved in create the desired outcome up front. You say, at the end of this year, these 3 years, these 5 years, this is what we intend to happen. We're going to increase test scores by 12%. We're going to build one more building. We're going to, you know, paint the barn, whatever the it is. And so the difference here is we did not come from top down to say, at the end of this time, here's exactly what we're going to have, and here's the picture of what it looks like. But rather those pathways to get to where it is we want to be. And we're okay to say we're not sure what that looks like at all times. And we're building that kind of based on the decisions that we make, the learning that happens, the questions that happen, and then moving forward. So lots of great stuff.
Morning. I'd agree so much with what Gwen and Jerry just said. I came into the process a little bit later, kind of in the summer when it had started, second semester of last year. And at first, I think I was a little taken aback by the process. Like Jerry, I've done strategic planning. I've been in education for 30 years. I've been through several strategic plans. There was nothing that ever felt like this. So when I came in, I was a little reluctant, and I was a little nervous about, all right, so this is all, to use Jerry's word, groovy, but what are we going to get out? You know, what's going to happen here? What are we going to produce? What kind of big binder is going to come at the end of this that, like, I'm going to be able to put on my shelf and say we did a strategic plan? Right. So what really happened over the summer is when I got involved is I saw that, wow, we're not doing that. That's not where we're getting. We're not going to have this big binder. We're not going to have a million answers. We're not going to be able to stand up in front of the school district when the teachers come back in September and say, this huge book is our strategic plan, and everybody take one, and in 5 years, here are the things that are going to happen. So I think that, to me, was just really eye-opening and kind of getting in the mode of everybody on the leadership team and on the writing team and kind of understanding that we were going to do this so differently. The way that the teachers who were on this leadership team and the writing committee, the way they got involved. And it was okay to play with words and like how important every word was. Our first week of writing, when we were in the room with people, and our nature is, let's just get this, come on, we got to get going here. We got to write something. And we really labored over words, and we talked about them, and we changed them, and even up to the last minute when we looked at the curriculum and we said, no, we can't, not revolutionary, and we all started looking up the word revolutionary. It was just such a different process. I think going forward, what's been amazing is that it's really easy in the pace that we all move to let things go, because you just keep moving on to the next thing that has to happen that day. And I think the three of us, and I'll give us some credit, because of this process, have slowed down a bit, and we've made sure that really every week, if not more, we have a time set aside just to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And there may not be a product at the end of every one of those hours, but it puts us back in it. And next week at our board meeting, we're going to be doing kind of an update. And we can't get over everything that's happened since September. Yeah. If you had asked us in September, where would you be right now, I think we all would have been really nervous. Yeah. But I think because of the process and because of the way we went about this, it's all kind of just coming together. So lots of credit for the process in that.
Thank you. And now I thank you so much, all three of you. Gwen, I think you want to share. You told us earlier that you want to share. You have something to share a little bit about what the plan is looking like.
Sure.
Overview. So we'd love to see that. Want to make sure we get that in before our time runs up.
Sure. So just a little bit of context for this. So the phase of implementation that we're in, really through the end of this school year, is communicating the plan. So spending a lot of time to engage all of our different partners in our school community to make sure that they feel this plan, that we honor the spirit of it. So we are talking to them about opportunities for immersion experiences on a broader scale. So helping to ensure that our high school teachers feel empowered and have opportunities to spend time in a first grade classroom during in a responsive classroom structure, observing what a morning meeting looks like, or that our elementary level teachers have the opportunity to see how their really good work lays a foundation for our students' future success at the high school level. So making use of the tools of the plan, which are immersions, which are learning journeys on a wider scale, and a word that we haven't used yet that I think is also an important tool is prototyping. That the idea that that we can take a large system like ours and have it act in an instant. That the prototyping is a process, is a tool that we can use to make innovation part of our doing, is also really exciting. And there are a lot of people in our community feeling it's this great creative energy that is helping everyone to think anew, or to celebrate where the bright spots are in our system, and to think about how those could be expanded through other types of prototypes. So those three tools, we're spending a lot of time communicating what they are, the spirit behind them, making sure that we're all on the same page, so that our foundation is really strong. So toward that end, one tool is our strategic plan website, which it's absolutely still a work in progress, and what you see here is definitely a draft, but we thought it might be helpful to share this at this time, so that you could see how we're also working to use the technology to communicate. On the left side of the screen here you see our strategic pathways, and I will, let's see, student-driven schools. This, you can see how we're organizing information here in terms of what the big idea is, which is, the foundational shift that we're looking to make within our system, why we need to do this, making sure that we're communicating the heart of the matter, and why we need to make this large change over time. Some of the high-level strategies that we are thinking at this point would help us to achieve this foundational shift, and some of the accountability measures that we want to use to check our growth along the way. So we've broken down the plan through our strategic pathways. We have a Get Involved link in which we are sharing information about immersion experiences or learning journeys, communicating again what they are, what their intent is, reflecting on the learning journey, and thinking about how observation of another system can be brought into our system. Again, here we have create a prototype, so we are very much encouraging innovation, within the framework that we have. It's like this loose and tight dynamic between we're tight about our priorities and we're tight about the change that we want to make in our system, but we're real loose in how we could achieve that. We also have in our planning archive documents from our steering committee. So who served on our steering committee? Liz, I think it was you who was stressing transparency earlier in our conversation, and that was really important to us, that we want to honor our community, and we felt that being transparent about who was on the committee, our meeting minutes, what we were talking about in these meetings, provided an opportunity to share information. You can see here some of the documents that described our learning journeys that we took as part of our process, some of the immersions that we took, again, as part of our process. So that's all captured on this website as well. On the right side, we have the plan itself, which I'm happy to say is well under 100 pages, speaking to the accessibility of the plan and the simplicity that we wanted to capture, as well as an overview document which we plan to share with our community. It's like a pretty one-page document that really captures the essence of it. So this website, while again very much a work in progress and something that we are developing as we go, is a tool that we intend to use to help communicate the plan with a wider audience.
And I just want to share with the plan and with the work is that just to celebrate the work of the team. So there's no way, I mean, we could do this with just 2 people or 3 people, but it's a growing team. So we have the leadership team, but as we are the ambassadors moving forward and looping into the principals and the assistant principals and the teachers, so that the team just grows, and it can't happen in isolation, and we really have to connect with others. And I want to celebrate too is that how the vocabulary of the plan, the language, is becoming common in meetings. So we'll hear, a principal who might not have been on the steering committee and who maybe hadn't been engaged in this conversation using the language of a prototype, or can we prototype that, or can we take a learning journey somewhere. So that's just wonderful to hear that become just part of the language. And then also, as we continue the process, we've signed on for a couple of learning journeys that we have planned this month and next month to Virginia, to New York, as we go to explore how districts and schools infuse Mandarin into their world language program, or how portfolio assessment leads another school. So we're continuing that work as we move forward as well.
So thank you all so much. I'm sad to say it is 8:59.
Wow.
That we could go on so much longer. I have to say that I'm sitting here just even thrilled because there's so much more going on at Lower Merion than I even realize now. So it's really wonderful to hear. I just want to mention a few of the questions that have popped up very quickly. One is, are we recording this? Yes, it's recorded. It will be available. If you go to the same link that you used to get onto, you can get a recording of this, and we would love for you to share this with others. Another is, somebody asked about the time commitment. How much time commitment was for the steering committee? How much time commitment was for the leadership team? I'm just going to answer quickly because of our time. So the steering committee really just met 4 times in addition to voluntary immersion experiences. They were full-day meetings, but that was basically the extent of their commitment, unless they volunteered, for example, to be on the writing team or do extra immersions. The leadership team is another story. We had constant contact, as the 3 of them will attest to, that we met every other week or so, sometimes a little longer than that, but and in the beginning, because the time was so compressed, we met more often than that. So there was a lot of connection with the leadership team and with Dr. Marseille and, you know, these three partners of ours. Liz, is there anything else you want to add to close this off?
I just really want to thank Gwen and Jerry and Marcy, and I'm like so emotional right now. You know, we're at a time in our country and our world where we don't trust our public officials. Like, let's remember, these are public schools, and these are our public officials and public leaders. And I am in awe of you, and I think it never hit me that the work that you're doing and the way that you're demonstrating leadership is an inspiration, forget about schools, way beyond schools, of what it means to take your public leadership stewardship responsibility really seriously. So I just want to say how grateful I am to you.
And I echo that and want to end with this final question that I saw from one of the participants, and that is, when you were already a great district, what motivated you to go through all this? And if you could just take like 30 seconds to answer that, I think it's such an important question.
Sure. I think really the inspiration and leadership from Dr. Marseille and the school board to realize the need to look at this in a bigger way and to support not only each and every student in our district, but really the language that you shared as well, that if we can't do it, who can? So we really have to make sure that we're able to do this for all children.
And I would just add on that, you know, it's working now, but our commitment is about now, but it's also about the future. So it's making sure that we're positioned to continue to be in, to serve our students with the quality of education that we do.
As the landscape shifts,
Exactly.
Which is happening. Marcy, any comments?
No, I think that's exactly it. I mean, it's really hard when you're at a certain position to say we're going to change. We've heard from teachers, well, what is it that you're trying to fix?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so important that we, with our leadership with Dr. Marseille, we look beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a district where things were working, but were they working for everyone? And I think that's what got us in this direction.
And will they continue?
And will they continue to work?
Right.
And just to say, we never said, I don't know that we said the name of the plan, but it's very significant. The name of the plan is All Forward.
All forward.
Is that it can't be some children or a group of children. It has to be every child in Lower Merion and everywhere that needs to be served. And so it's a really good place to end. So it's for all forward, all of education. So thank you all. Thank you to our friends from the depths of our soul. Thank you for those who joined, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.